Today is a great day to plant. There will be thunderstorms later today, so it's going to do the watering for me. I like to try to garden on the days that I won't have to water quite as much, so it makes it easier for me. But what I wanted to talk to you about today was soil. Cover your soil. If you have weeds growing, you don't have enough plants growing. If you can see your soil, you don't have enough plants growing. So today I'm going to use a variety of plants to do that. I'm going to cover the soil. I have parsley here and I have cantaloupe. And I also have a variety of seeds. Now, it is hot and humid here in Missouri. So we have moved on from our cold season crops to our warm season crops. In our warm season crops to cover the soil, we have basil, we have cantaloupe, cucumbers, you can do marigolds, zucchini, anything that you can layer in your garden so that things that need a little bit more shade or like a little bit more shade can be under plants, like under your tomatoes down here. I'm going to plant some of this parsley so it gets a little bit of shade in the afternoon. And then you want to just layer your plants. So you want your tall ones in the middle, you want plants around the outside of it that can take a little bit more of the shade or want a reprieve from the sun. And that's what we're going to do today. So we are not only growing plants, but I try to grow soil too. I want healthy soil that is covered, that won't grow so many weeds. This is my planting stick. Seems a little odd, but that way I don't have to bend over quite as often, saves my back, and I can still plant lots of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this stick and I poke it in the ground. And what that does is creates a hole. Pop it right down there in that hole. So that's what I'm going to do right through here. These are cucamelons, so they do get kind of wild and crazy. So I want to make sure that I don't get too close to them because we're going to train them that way to cover the soil. We have parsley here, and then over on this side of the bed, we have basil to help cover the soil. So take that parsley, just put it right there in the ground. Just pop these out of here. They are a little dry because I haven't watered them yet today, but that's okay. Just slide them right in there. And then on this bed here, I am also going to go ahead and plant this cantaloupe, one over here in this corner, and I will probably plant one right around here too, so that that can vine over the side of the bed and I can utilize the soil and the water in the bed, but the space here in the walkway. So that'll kind of maximize this bed to its fullest potential. I have a few more cantaloupes and parsleys I'm going to plant. I'm going to walk around and stick them in open areas that the soil needs to be covered. It's only the beginning of June and I already can't get through these aisles. So I'm going to have to cut this back. Or maybe I'll just tie it up. Either way. All right. So yesterday, it rained. It rained a lot. It rained all day. I did not get finished with my garden project, which was cover my soil. So what that did give me the opportunity to do, though, was to go to the garden center. So I was able to get some more things that I wanted to plant that could cover my soil. I did go ahead and get some sweet potatoes, and I got another basil because the kids wanted it. And if the kids want to plant, they get the plant. So I didn't share with you yesterday the seeds that I'm going to be planting to help cover my soil. And those include cinnamon basil and marigolds, Swiss chard, and Armenian cucumbers, and some summer squash. So put those down before I drop them again. And let's talk about why you should cover your soil. These right here, weeds. That's why you should cover your soil. Because when the soil is exposed, weeds will grow. And also because you have to water. And if you have time to water every day, more power to you. I do not have time to water. So I am showing you this bed in particular because on this side where you can see, I have nasturtiums and I have calendula. And then I have a row of tomatoes down the middle. So this side looks great. The nasturtiums, calendula, tomatoes, Those are all companion plants, and the nasturtiums are a trap crop. The calendula and nasturtiums will attract beneficial pollinators, which help pollinate my tomatoes. So that these are all planted all really nice together. Down on this end, we have basil. We have 3 different types of basil. And on this side, I went ahead and I planted a cantaloupe on the corner. So this cantaloupe is going to vine over the top, and it'll use my walkway space to produce cantaloupes. There's also cucamelons in here that will use the tomatoes to grow up the vines. These cucamelons use the tomato plants as a trellis. And then I also planted parsley. And the reason I planted the parsley here is because parsley doesn't necessarily love the hot summers. However, these tomatoes will help block my west facing sun, because that is when it is the hottest. Here at about 4 o'clock in July and August, you will not find me out here because it is miserably hot. And another reason that I like to cover the soil is, think of it like a forest. In the forest, you have your trees, your big tall trees, you have your understory plants, and then you have the leaves that are covering the ground. So my understory plants are things like calendula and nasturtiums, things that cover the ground and act like a mulch. Can either be mulch, straw, or compost, or it can be a living mulch like parsley, basil, cucumbers, that kind of thing. So that is why I always look to cover my soil. And this is not a huge space compared to the gardens that my grandparents grew. This space makes them giggle because it's not very big. And so how I use these beds to pack as much as possible into this 3-foot space. That's how wide my beds are, 3-foot spaces. And they're about 30 foot long. So I use it to pack as much as I can into there. I keep my aisles covered so that I don't have to weed them. I'm not tilling them. I would prefer them to have mulch, but we haven't got around to that yet. So right now, some of them have mulch. Some of them have weed tarp. I will not be putting mulch over the weed tarp, but I am using the weed tarp to suppress the weeds. So I'm going to finish planting. So today I have a few things that I needed to plant out, like my sweet potatoes that I just got. I also have some basil and the seeds, marigolds and things like that. As I'm looking around my garden, it is at a point where if I plant anything else that I have to pick on a daily basis, I'm going to get overwhelmed. So I'm not going to do that. And so that's why I use marigolds and zinnias and calendula and nasturtiums to fill up the garden, make it look beautiful so that I want to be out here, but it's not something I have to pick. Sweet potatoes, same thing. Cantaloupe, same thing. My winter squash, same thing. So I like to mix a little bit of things that I have to pick every single day to make the plant healthy and that require a little bit of fuss. And then some things that I don't have to touch until they're ready to harvest because they fill the space, they make my garden feel full and lush, but it takes very little effort on my part. So we're gonna finish the projects we started yesterday and hope to do it before my kid wakes up from her nap. These carrots won't be here much longer, so I'm gonna go ahead and put 2 different kinds of marigolds right here along the edge of them, so that as the marigolds are growing, I'll harvest the carrots, and then the marigolds will continue to grow and help shade the soil from the okra that I have planted up here. If you just think about the way plants grow, okra, they get huge and tall. So I want something that's gonna be underneath of them. So I'm planting marigolds. I have basil down there. This is the south side of my garden. So I do make sure that when I'm planting things, that it's gonna get full sun. Over here, anything that's going to be on that side of the okra might not get quite as much sun, which the tomatoes will like a little bit of shade from the okra by the time the okra get big and the tomatoes are producing just a little bit of shade. It's just because it's so hot and so humid. The tomatoes like a little bit of shade so that they continue to produce. And then you can think about, I'm not going to plant a potato underneath of my okra here because I have to dig potatoes up, so that'll disturb the roots. So you think about stuff like that. And I can talk more about companion planting and recommended companion planting in another video. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these marigolds planted here in the ground. And then I can walk you around and I'll just kind of show you a few things that I have planted and things that I've worked on here today. Over here we have the basil. I went ahead and tied up the feverfew. There's also some parsley planted back in there. So we just kind of tidied everything up on this side. The tomato that we bought, I stuck way over here on this side so that it will help shade this red sorrel that's not such a sun-loving plant. Down here, this is where the sweet potatoes ended up. So there's 2 sweet potatoes here. I do have one more kohlrabi that I will be picking and maybe making how I like to eat it video. All right, down here on the end, the marigolds and the okra are planted in here. I trimmed a bunch of just straggly stuff back, so cleaned up the garden a little bit. And then over here we have where I planted the cantaloupes on this side. And I planted cinnamon basil in here on this row. And then I also have a tomato on here where I took out some of the lettuce and I put in some parsley. This is cinnamon basil right here, planted here in my flower bed. I need to prune that so it stays nice and fluffy. It makes an excellent tea. And then I also sprinkled some cinnamon basil back in here, tied up this feverfew is where I planted the Swiss chard, just to give this a little bit more color and definition. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.